Hey Whitney, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming. I see Jonas here too. Jonas, I'm inviting you up. If you don't see the invitation, go ahead and request, and then I'll bring you up. How is Italy, Whitney? How's Turin?
It is good. Things are going well. It's still more like still warmer and more summer-like weather than I expected though. I'm really ready for autumn. Like I want cooler weather.
100%. It's actually really nice in New York right now, which is kind of hot yesterday, but yeah, it is. It is getting nicer. Hi, Jonas. How are you?
Hi everybody, I'm good. I'm a bit tired, but otherwise I'm good. Nice. We're gonna chill a bit until people show up, or not chill. Yeah, we chill a bit. Okay, that's fine.
Correct. Yeah, we're gonna chill for like a few minutes. And Jonas,
Nice.
I, is it Jonas or Jonas?
I'd say Jonas in Swedish,
Jonas.
but it's
Okay, it's
fine either way. It's no problem. However you like.
okay. I've been saying both throughout the talk, so I'm gonna go with Jonas. So I'm glad we clarified. Thank you.
Jonas. Yeah, cool.
And
Yeah, it's better.
perfect. Hi, Jeff Beef. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well. How's everyone doing? I'm a couple minutes late, I think. I heard some chatter about the weather. Um, I'm in Toronto, so it's a little bit similar, I guess, in climate to New York right now. We're having a little bit of a heat wave for October.
Does heat wave mean it's just not snowing yet in Toronto?
Toronto is not that much further north than upstate New York. People, I think that there's a perception that we live in the snowy Great White North, but I used to live really far north in Kapuskasing, which is a 10-hour drive north of Toronto. So yes, it's probably snowing there now. Days are very short, but in Toronto, like it's like t-shirt weather. Like it was humid yesterday. You're like sweating and stuff. So unusual for this time of year, but becoming sort of more usual from year to year. So,
Well, that's, I mean, I guess good and bad in some ways, but point taken. I will not throw as much shade on Toronto for the snow that I assume is just constantly covering the ground there.
oh no, that's
Um,
okay. It's I just like I had to point it out.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yes, so we are gonna wait just a couple more minutes for more folks to come in. If you don't mind tweeting about the space, just so that it refreshes on the feed, and then people can jump into the conversation. We're also recording, and so we're going to post these on our website and our YouTube soon here after the series is over. So anyone who can't make it can always listen back, which is always kind of a nicer medium when you want to like go back or rewind or kind of really sit with the conversation. But again, there's nothing like being here live. So please do tweet about the space, and we'll go ahead and start in just a couple minutes. I wish the music would come back on after you mute, after it stops, but alas, it does not. I see Jimena. Hi, Jimena. So good to see you here. And Zane, Andre. I see Casey too. Thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate you all making time during these what feels like busiest of times. So
I got the music. Wait, I'll play last song I learned. Very good.
That
thank
that was really
you.
beautiful. Are you performing that? And I had If I might ask, is that for your child
Exactly.
or someone that's soon on the way? Because I think I heard that you either recently or are soon to have a child.
6 weeks today, so yes, indeed, he's the intended audience. So I play it most of the time like that. But I realized quickly after he arrived that it's quite hard to soothe the baby and play guitar at the same time. So I've resorted mostly to singing it because no hands. So maybe I need like one of these like Neil Young harmonica holders so I can play harmonica while holding the baby. But let's see. Yeah. But so far he's really into the guitar. He's slowly starting to sing along as we sing songs and play, which is really nice. So I like that. It's good times.
That is wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. That was such a special treat.
Sure.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Do you know any other songs? I mean, not that you have to play now, but I'm just curious.
I know many songs, yeah. I play
Amazing.
guitar for fun, but it's nice. It's a good. I do a lot of different music in my work, like besides my work, which I never really use for my work. I keep it like wholly in the camp of being like non-productive in the sense that I convert it into work, but just keep it like protected like that. So then I do it. I play guitar and I play clarinet and piano and a bunch of other stuff. But mostly only for the fun of it and also for what it does to my brain practicing. It feels like super useful for brain function, for my brain to just practice music because it's so specific. Either you like how it sounds and then it's good, or you don't and you can't play it and you just practice more. It's like the opposite of making art, where it's like often in my practice, I talk about like a studio practice or an artistic practice, but how do you practice art making? You can make it, but then how do you get feedback? Like with music, the feedback is immediate. Either it sounds good or it doesn't, or you feel it or you don't feel it. So with the art, I suppose it's the same, but it's much harder to quantify. And it's much harder to get like this kind of immediate feedback. Whereas music, it's like just straight to the heart or not. So it's really nice. It's like really like counters the problematics of abstraction or something like this. I think. See? I'm gonna add a little like sound effect after every sentence. Yeah.
Amazing. This is
Very good.
an elevated Twitter space. People don't even know.
Instead of an emoji, like you could have a special word for like sound emojis or something. Be very useful.
Exactly. It's like, yeah.
Yes. Incredible.
It's very good. So, but I can do it to everybody. But my guitar is not so good, so I don't know that many tunes. But it would be good to do like a rim shot or like a laugh track on the guitar. It would be nice. Maybe it's enough with just one note. Like if it's just vibrating enough, it's like, yeah, good.
That's perfect. Well, you heard it here, folks. We're about to do a sound reaction Twitter space. So get ready. I guess should we go ahead and get started? That was such a nice intro, a nice little reprieve. But I do want to get into this conversation. So let's go ahead and get started. I see that there are other folks here as well. So thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you all being here today. This is the Source Talk series, and my name is Elizabeth Sweet, and I'm the communications lead at Feral File. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Jonas Lund, Deaf Beef, and Whitney Hart in a conversation titled Onchain Accidents. Now, Source is a non-commercial exhibition on Feral File featuring artworks made in the last several years which use software as a medium. The Source curators, operator, Deaf Beef, who's here with us today, and Casey Reas spent hours discussing generative works that have impacted them over the years. So here's an excerpt from the curator statement. This is not an attempt at a survey exhibition or defining a new canon. This is simply a selection of work that the four of us are thinking about right now. For those of us in the middle of art, code, and blockchains for the last few years, there's been little to no time to pause and reflect on what has happened. Source is our attempt to do that collaboratively. Now, Anya Catherine and DJT from Operator, Deaf Beef, and Casey Reas wrote wonderfully rich and thoughtful descriptions on each of the 25 works exhibiting in Source, and I recommend you check them out after the talk. And actually, at the top of this chat, I have pinned little snippets from Anya's reflection on Jonas's work, Most Accidents Happen at Home. So go ahead and check that out if you'd like. Now, today, as I mentioned, we're here with Jonas, Lund, and Deaf Beef for a conversation about on-chain accidents. And I'm really grateful that all of you are here today. Now, the title of this conversation came from thinking about Jonas's work, Most Accidents Happen at Home, which has been curated into Source. And this project is both humorous and insightful and meaningful and deeply reflective. There's this sense of accountability and humor woven through it, with a real opportunity to self-reflect on the personal and the public, and weaving this, this relationship that we all talk about kind of a lot here in Web3, which is bridging the physical and the digital, which in similar and different ways, Most Accidents Happen at Home, and Jonas's work relates to Deaf Beef's practice to me. And so I'm interested to hear the two of you in conversation today, led by Whitney Hart, who I'm really grateful to be joined with as well. Now, Whitney Hart is an art historian and strategy advisor, and she's agreed to moderate this discussion, and I really couldn't be happier. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Whitney, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you to Ferrophile for having me today, and to everyone for joining us and listening in. I always like to kick off and begin these conversations by hearing from the artist about their project in their own words. So, Jonas, I'd like to give you the floor to kick us off. Can you just tell us all about your project, what inspired it, how it progressed as you were working through the concept, and now that it's live, the mechanics of how it evolves over time?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, by the way, and hello everybody, and hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, so Most Accidents at Home came about from, it was like the end result of Wild XYZ residency, and I see Remy is in the audience, and Remy was what was his title? Like residency lead, liaison, supporter, superstar producer, perhaps. I think so. The Wild XYZ I was part of season 1. I think Deaf Beef was part of season 0, if I'm not mistaken. So that's cool. And throughout that residency, there was a lot of talk. Let me just see if I can remember how it came about. My brain is a little bit sleep deprived, so please have 1 second patience. Maybe I'll just stall. No, it's okay. So basically, Wild XYZ was super helpful in facilitating lots of production that I didn't typically have access to, such as assistance with doing like on-chain generative 3D sculptures, which I found like a thing kind of like that we worked out together in the process, a thing that was difficult to resist doing something with that. And I like went through my archives and I realized I'd been into this concept of stacks for a long time, of impossible balancing acts, as a gesture of something like temporal, ephemeral, that just exists in a split second and then just collapses. So coupled with the fact that at the time my partner was very pregnant and had started to drop tons of stuff at home, like glasses and other things, plates and what have you. So there was lots of accidents going on. So then I thought, how can I combine the desire for making stacks with the desire to have less accidents at home? And then I thought, okay, let's make myself more accountable, or let's make the family more accountable for the accidents. So throughout that, throughout all these conversations and thoughts, emerged the Most Accidents Happen at Home, which is a collection of 256 pieces, I believe. I might be wrong. I think it's 256. Let me just double check. Pretty sure. See, sleep deprivation. Anyway, I think it's 200. Maybe Remy can signal it in the chat. That are sort of impossible stacks of common household objects, drawing from a library of, I think, around 1,500 objects, with enough permutations to reach more, I think, something like 16 billion different variations possible, that are then stacked, and then they are sort of they're like teetering perfectly in balance as 3D objects, like GLB files. And that's it. And then as soon as I have an accident at home, which still hasn't happened, by the way, and this launched, I think, in June, and there still hasn't been a single accident at home since then, which is kind of nice uh, for me and the family, but not so nice for the artwork, perhaps, because it will be nice when they start to collapse. Because as soon as I have an accident, I document it, take a picture of it, trigger an on-chain event that topples one of the pieces like permanently, so it can never untopple. It will always be collapsed. And then there's like a on-chain event where you can see the accident. There's like an accident log on accidents.jonaslund.com. So there's a direct correlation between what happens at home with the pieces that exist on-chain. That's somehow the general introduction to the piece. They have like this really nice pastel-y background color, which is heavily inspired by the IKEA catalog. Because I'm Swedish, I'm allowed to be inspired by the IKEA catalog, I believe. It's like this really friendly, non-offensive pastel colors, but presenting like the menacing threat of the potential collapse. But I have to say also like props to operator for the text because it was amazing. I really enjoyed the curatorial text. It feels like it captures the work perfectly. One way to have done this would have been to just quote the text, but it's there for everybody to read. Okay, thank you.
That was wonderful. And so can a single piece have more than one topple? Is there a limit?
No, like as soon as one piece is toppled, that's it. Then it like just stays permanently toppled. So it's like so basically there is a potential for like 256 accidents, and then once that's done, like then that's the piece is sort of complete. And based on the current like drop rate, let's say my personal drop rate, the personal family drop rate, it's gonna take a long time. That's my feeling. It's really rare these days that I drop things at home in general. And it's a question also what's like constitutes an accident. Is it enough to like you drop something but it doesn't break? Is that an accident worthy of being unchained or not? And my feeling is that it has to have like what I've done so far is that it has to have like permanent damage accident to something for it to count. Otherwise, there's like no nice picture to take, you know. So, but I'm not sure. Maybe I have to, depending on how it goes, maybe I have to revise this and see. But I also think in a way like the accident knows, you know, like once the accident is there, it will like communicate by itself whether it should count as a on-chain worthy accident or not.
I had a question. If the are the objects like if you have an accident with a dinner plate, does that correspond to a particular token that like are the objects that are balanced, are those actual objects from your home, or is there any correspondence there?
There's like a slight correspondence, but it is not a one-to-one correspondence. And I think there would be a potential to like say, okay, because I dropped a plate, I have to topple a piece with a plate. But because it's too like volatile, let's say, in not knowing what gets dropped or what gets destroyed, I figured it's better. And right now, it's using the mechanism with slight randomness. It selects based on the feature of stability. So each piece has a stability integer, which goes from like 0 to 100. So the higher it is, the more stable the stack is. So, and the lower it is, the more like fragile the stack is. So I think that plus some randomness will like determine which is the one that gets toppled. I think so, or maybe I decided in the end that it's just going to be straight up random. It must say somewhere in the text. I'm just checking to see. Yeah, it just says one of the stacks. And I think in a way it's better if it's random because then there is no sort of gamification or there's no way of predicting which one gets destroyed. In a similar way, like I can make the claim, the conceptual reasoning that an accident is an accident, so it doesn't happen planned, right? So then in the same way, the tuple can be on a random one as an accident. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That definitely
Yeah.
that question actually goes to something else I was going to ask. I think it's so interesting because it's a really personal work that's reflecting on your own identity and your life at home, the household items that you surround yourself with. But at the same time, as you've mentioned in the introduction, to the project, the items are also in this generalized IKEA-like style, so they can really be imagined or extrapolated as a reflection of anyone's home and anyone's identity. So, how were you thinking about navigating this line between personalization and generalization when creating the different components of the NFT and this generative mechanism?
I mean, I think most of my work, for better or worse, involves myself in some way, shape, or form. Like, I mean, thinking of which is one of the more long running projects I've had, which is the Jonas Lund token, which is the tokenization of my artistic practice, which has been running since 2018. And it's like it goes on the border of like, okay, so professional positioning, you be like, okay, so this is the professional Jonas Lund artist, but then there's also Jonas Lund existing as a person, like as everybody other, like all the other people in the world, and everybody has like a life at home with family or not, and things going on, which obviously is really relevant to most things, or like perhaps like the most relevant thing for most people in general. So it's like it's a question of like where you draw the line of what you want to put inside your artistic practice, and that for me is like it's always a negotiation, or like a sort of, it's not always clear. Like, so clearly you pull from your own like personal life all the time in deciding what you want to work on or not, and even if it's like strictly conceptual or complicated or mostly talking about art or the value of art, there still comes a point where it's actually like some core interest or some correlation to like other things that go on in your life. So I don't really make this separation necessarily, like between like personal versus general. I think if it is, I think probably makes sense that it becomes general through being personal, like because by presenting one position or like one like aspect, like yeah, one position, then the viewer, audience, whoever can relate to that, and then that becomes a sort of mirror or reflection back on yourself, which I think most of my work uses this as a principle. It doesn't really dictate much, it doesn't preach, it doesn't tell you, okay, it has to be like you have to read this work like that, or it's more like with the like for the risk of sounding very like international art English cliche, it's like to make visible certain structures, certain behaviors, certain things happening in society. Make visible, probably kind of put some value judgment on it, but not be too didactic in that value positioning, because then it's like there's nothing left to gain. Like the abstraction disappears if it's too preachy, it's too reminiscent of like this straight up like ars electronica, new media art, which like mostly leaves you feeling kind of empty because there's nothing left to get, like there's like everything has been explained to you, so then what's left in some way. So I think, so then by taking a personal or like certain position that is a kind of potential mirror to look into, reflect on, to relate to, and then that can become general in that, but also then automatically personal because you relate to it by looking at it. Yeah. It's so good to have a guitar to be able to say when I'm finished. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
I really like what you said there, Jonas. I'd like to share sort of like my interpretation, like you saying that there's not like anyone reading and stuff this work. What I was thinking about when I saw this was I was thinking about the desire for balance in a home, right? And like my own reading of it is like seeing something in a sort of sterilized environment, like the like IKEA or home magazines, like as an example, seeing people's picture perfect kind of homes and this kind of timelessness of it, this idea that it's sort of just persists, and it's like that, and it never changes. And from my own kind of experience, like I work as a hobbyist blacksmith, and so I have a garage workshop, and I really see like what thinking about homes, thinking about like kind of sacred spaces, like I treat that sort of like as a refuge. And what I really like about it is that that it's unchanging, and that the craft doesn't it doesn't require any type of advanced technology that's continually changing. It's always the same tools that work regardless. If I leave for a year and come back, that's what I did after I had my first child. I wasn't able to do my hobbyist blacksmithing, but when I came back to the garage a year later, everything was exactly where I put it, and I could miraculously begin using it right away. I didn't have to reinstall any operating system or upgrade any hardware. It just all works. So that the desire, kind of the idea that things remain in balance or remain unchanging, is something that I think about a lot. And then in the end, it really is an illusion. Like I notice in my garage that my tools are, rusting. Recently the ceiling has started dripping, and I can also feel myself getting older. Like I do a lot of physical work, and I can really sense that now, that it's different than when I started being a hobbyist blacksmith 10 years ago. So yeah, just some thoughts and some connections to some of the things that I've been thinking about with relation to kind of a desire, not for permanence, because I think that's sort of an illusion, but sort of people's desire for things to remain in balance or remain in a certain state that's familiar to them.
That makes sense. I used to watch this YouTuber blacksmith, British dude. What was his name?
Alex Steele.
Yeah,
his last name is actually Steele. Yeah.
Yeah. That was like tremendously entertaining for a while on YouTube. And then I got also really into blacksmithing, but I never tried it, but I really wanted to, because it feels like it's such a punishing material to work with. You just mess up and then that's it. Although you can, of course, re-smelt it, like you can just remelt it again. But I suppose it's like, that's super, super nice. Do you also then do your own kitchen knives in like million layered Damascus steel? That
Good question. Good question. So I steer more towards my motivation to start doing it was kinetic sculpture. I really liked on YouTube. I discovered the videos of Arthur Ganson. I don't know if you know the kinetic sculptor Arthur Ganson. He makes these whimsical machines. And I originally started a welding class, and they had a forge there. And then I got really, really fascinated by the idea of heating a homogeneous material and then being able to bend and shape it like clay, and then having it solidify into something that's has very high tensile strength. So I kind of went more towards decorative kind of things or kinetic things. And I have made a few knives, but I'm not a hardcore bladesmith. I know that is very popular. It's very interesting, all those techniques, but I don't make too many knives. But I would like to say though that it's not as punishing as you think. I mean, if you're making a blade, then yes, because you spend 100 hours or 50 hours making the blade, and then the final quench, you can destroy it, and then it cracks and it's gone. I don't like that. What I like about blacksmithing is that if something is out of line, or it's not the shape you want, or if there's some problem with it, basically you hit it with a hammer until it's better, right? And so to me, that's like really forgiving. Like it's not like woodworking where you're doing some type of subtractive kind of if you cut something, then it's gone. Like when you're working metal, you can bend it back, you can forge it back. You can't melt it really, because it's steel. It's only forging. It's not melting. Sure. But yeah, there's properties of the material that are really, really pleasurable to work with.
That makes sense. I have one final question on the topic of blacksmithing, then we can move on. Also I would like to say it's a nice observation about keeping things in balance and being like, it's like a meditation Zen moment. My final question. So I know when Alex Steele was on the anvil with his hammering, he would like hit the piece he's working on twice and then let the hammer bounce on the anvil as he was thinking, and then hit it again. Is that something you do too?
Okay, good question. And so there's been a lot of discussion about this, actually, because a lot of people, I know where that came from. So Alex Steele, when he was very young, was apprenticed to a U.S. Blacksmith named Brian Brazil. And this was part of, he idolized Brian Brazil. Brian Brazil is this kind of like mystic figure that has like taught all these blacksmiths, and he works alone, doesn't use any power tools, only hand tools, like in somewhere in Texas. But anyways, he had the habit of doing that. And he had some reason about why he did it, but I think it's a stylistic thing that people would copy, and I think that might be part of it. The reason that people give is that it keeps your rhythm while you're thinking about your next strike, right? So so you continue the rhythm without, but then you get a chance to sort of think and plan what exactly you're going to do next with the next hit.
That makes total sense. And I also think, I mean, for people who are not at all in tune with what we're talking about, it's super nice to watch some like blacksmith work on the anvil, because it's really, it's like really exactly like that. It's like a rhythm. It's like an instrument. So like you keep hitting the material you're working on, and then you need time to think, but you cannot break the rhythm. So you let the hammer bounce on the anvil until you're ready. And it's really, this moment of like pause and anticipation while still being in the zone is such a nice subtle moment. Like that, I think if one looks at YouTube with Alex Steele working on something, you'll see it and you'll be like, you instantly understand like the rhythm of it, which is super cool. So it's not so different from playing guitar, I think.
I need to go Google this now. I don't know what this is. That sounds really interesting, though. To bring it back a little bit, you both are artists whose practices span the physical, obviously, whether playing music or blacksmithing, as well as the digital. So how does the digital component fit into your practices and perhaps change the way you think about both elements, both sides?
I mean, I can go first unless you have something really clear to say. Yeah, let me go first. I don't think of it as different things. It's all the same. Like, I mean, I make all my work in one way or another with the computer, even if it's physical work. Sometimes I build things. I don't believe I have necessarily the patience for doing too many physical works, because doing it on this level, putting things on the wall in a gallery, which I do very often too, but mostly it's like produced, like you work with fabricators who make it for you, because the level of detail and the level of perfection required to make good physical work is really intense, I think, because you don't get away with anything. Whereas when you make like software-based work, you can get away with a lot because you can always fix it. You can always like patch it later, unless it's somehow minted on chain forever and ever permanent. But in general, I don't make a separation because my process in my work is the same, regardless if it's physical or like online, digital, whatever. It's the same process of working out, like working out the concept, producing all the work, which anyways happen on a computer, and then like whether it ends up as something physical or not is somehow not necessarily later in the process, but it's kind of like I don't even make that much of a separation. And because I've gotten this question often, and I think over the last 14 years something. So I was like, okay, so analog versus digital, or like the physical versus the like virtual, online, offline. Where do you draw the line? And I always said the same. I don't make a different. I don't separate it. It's all part of the same thing. But I also make sense because most of my work, pretty much all of it, is based somewhere in writing code, whether it's physical or not. Yeah, I forgot I had to end with the guitar, but yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. I could talk about a few things. I guess the one thought that comes to mind is that sort of my experience the past couple of years, like just seeing people's sort of irrational like anger towards the idea of digital ownership. I found that really interesting, and I have something that sort of connects back to it. So I before I was a quote unquote artist, digital artist, I was hand making wedding rings. So as a blacksmith, I would make rustic, kind of hammered wedding rings out of common materials or not non-precious materials like titanium and stainless steel, sometimes iron, less often precious metals. But people, I found like it was by accident that this business came about, and that I was really surprised by the demand, the desire to have a handcrafted good. And what I realized was that like what people valued about it was the immaterial nature of it. Right? It was you could get something very similar to you could order it on Amazon even for far less money. But what people were buying, they were buying sort of the narrative behind it that it was handmade by a Canadian blacksmith. And so you have this object, and then it's a symbol of their relationship because often these were wedding bands, right? And what do you want the story of your relationship to be? You don't want it to be that you don't want it to be that you bought something cheap online. You'd want to have some type of important story behind it. And so to me, like the whether or not you're using a digital ledger as a point of reference, or whether you're using sort of atoms as like a point of reference, like it in the end, it really just comes from the like that's those both of those ways. Either I don't know, like digital quote unquote and analog is two ways of storing information, and the meaning always comes from the way that we interpret the symbols that this information represents. So it did make a lot of sense to me when I learned about NFTs that digital ownership could still hold that same meaning. So that's one thought. I could also talk a bit about like my choice to work with metal or to work with low level code kind of comes from the same. It seems like two different things, but they have some similarities, and it's sort of like a desire to have simple tools, kind of homogeneous material that doesn't depend on too many other things. You have everything within arm's reach in your blacksmith shop. If you need to make a tool, you make it out of the same material of that you're making your sculpture or your piece out of. So you make your own tools, and it's the same thing to me when you're coding, that you're developing. You write reusable pieces that you use with other stuff, and everything is right there in front of you. You don't have to. You kind of build this sort of self-contained world that persists. So, yeah, a couple of thoughts about those.
I think that's great, and I mean it's interesting that you both are. You don't necessarily see the separation between the digital and the physical, and looking at how you just create these self-contained worlds and learnings from both of them bleed into each other, into this kind of this richer and more vibrant whole as a result. And Jonas, on your website supporting the project, you wrote, "Most accidents happen at home is concerned with finding the boundaries and limits of what we consider real versus artificial in the world." And so again, kind of going back to this question of, are there boundaries? Are there separations? How are things merging and blending together? Over the last 3 months that the project's been live, evidently nothing has been broken or dropped, which is seemingly surprising. But, what have you learned about those boundaries and limits of what is real and artificial in your world at home?
Everything is real. I mean, actually, I have to say, I didn't write that. This was, I have to admit, this was written before the project was finished as part of a PR promo push, I believe. Right, Remy from Wild XYZ? So I don't necessarily believe this to be true, because I don't think. Because what is artificial, honestly? Like, how would we define artificial? Yeah, Remy agrees. So so it's true. Like, artificial meaning as in non-real. I don't know. I would have to really think about that before making a point. I would say what we consider real versus artificial. I mean, the piece, like most accidents happen at home, is very real. it exists somewhere. And we like to think of the internet as like, I mean, this is an old conversation about the internet, the cloud as being like immaterial, existing somewhere in the sky. But it's like vast data centers that consumes tons of energy and cables in the ground that connect us, you know. So it's like the internet is incredibly real, and the corporate, like the infrastructure, mostly owned by corporations, you know, like who just trying to extract as much value as they can out of every transaction. So I think that feels very real to me. The artificiality, yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone else has a better idea or take on this real versus artificial, because I can't work. Yeah, I need to. Maybe I will put operators text on my website from here on out. If I get the permission, I will ask them and see, because that feels more beautiful. But yeah, I don't know. Like, does anyone else have a point? Like, how do we think about the real versus artificial? Of course, one has to then think about like artificial intelligence and what does that mean? Like, okay, so it's not intelligence then. So it's like non-real intelligence, which I think applies to most artificial intelligence at this point. Although the rumor has it that OpenAI has created the general artificial intelligence. That's what I see in the conspiracy theorists of X, formerly known as Twitter. But yeah, we shall see soon, I guess. I'm not sure, like real versus artificial. What do you think, Death Beef?
Yeah, I also agree with a lot of what you said. Like, I mean, I used to work in music technology, run a recording studio, and there's endless discussions about analog versus digital in sound, right? Like about why vinyl records are, it's impossible to represent the same sound wave digitally, or blah blah blah, and all these things, and hocus pocus. And so, what I find, I also like agree that, you know, things that are virtual or things that are digital require a physical apparatus, and that whatever machine that happens to be, depending on what century you're in, and that it will be different in the future. Maybe it's going to be quantum qubits or light or what have you, instead of electricity through transistors. But that's all required. So all these things are real. Now, I do, at the same time, I also see it as interesting, sort of the popular conceptions of the way that people think about what is real and what's not. So to me, that's really interesting. And I've given some examples with experienced recording engineers still having this belief that the power cable that they plug in and then going and listening to it, in their mind, they think that it sounds different, right? And meanwhile, there's no basis for it. But and the same thing, people having this ridiculous, like, irrational anger about the idea that somebody could own something digitally, and that being very much different than, you know, owning a piece of physical art. When meanwhile, I really see it as, you know, there's information and the meanings. There's only any meaning if you have an observer, and the observer is going to be making these meanings based on the information. It doesn't matter the means of storing that information. It can be stored in many different ways, and at that point it doesn't. Yeah, I think that, like, part of the zeitgeist of things are people, like, to a wider audience, starting to sort of question what they how they the assumptions that they've made about, like, how they consider, say, I don't know, ownership or whatever else, like thinking about physical and virtual things. And that's an interesting topic.
There is, I mean, I think the talk about the gold-plated cable is so funny because it's so true. Then we can chalk it up to like placebo effect, I suppose. But I remember reading, maybe this was also fake news, but I remember that the placebo effect itself is not real. Like that they had it was just like someone had found out that it's like the placebo effect is like statistical variance in like somehow incorrect data processing throughout all of it. So actually there is no placebo. So maybe that this disproves the audiophile's addiction to the gold cable. I don't know. It makes sense. I think isn't like I mean yeah. Yeah, sorry.
That's amazing. It would psyops all the way down. The placebo effect is a conspiracy. No, that's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
I did not know that. I had no idea.
I mean, it might be fake news, so but who knows? We can play Sweet Home Alabama to cement this, and then we can move on. Anyways, I think don't quote me on that, please. It might just be some total fake newsness, but I liked reading it. Isn't all ownership somehow seemingly still totally digital? Hasn't that been concluded since the very beginning of NFTs? Like all our money is digital, all of our deeds are digital, everything is like somewhere on a ledger, whether it's on chain or off chain. It's kind of like it seems seemingly very real. That might be the most banal observation ever, but still, it feels kind of. Are people still mad at digital ownership in terms of NFTs, or is that also like 2021 conversation?
I really don't know. It's hard to say, right? Because it depends on like what circles you're in. I do know that when I speak to normies, like they quote unquote normies and stuff, they still will like think it's it's completely ridiculous that that you could own something digital, and that trying to make the case that owning a piece of physical art, like you could have a reproduction of that art and still have the same sensory experience. And so that's where, you know what I mean? Like when you get down to it, there's still like some resistance about why that's like fundamentally different than, having a like a ledger entry.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, I mean, isn't that like the classic billionaire Freeport scam? That you just put your Picasso in the Freeport and then you make a copy and then you secretly replace the copy with the real one, and then you say the real one is in the Freeport, so you don't have to pay import tax. This is like
interesting.
Classic,
yeah, I didn't know about
classic
that.
scam. So you put the real Picasso in your house and make a fake one, put it in the Freeport, and pretend nothing happened. It's like how to not pay in import tax. Yeah, that's it. Good. Yeah.
I can't speak to how many people do that, but yes, that is how free ports work, and not having to pay taxes on your very fancy artwork. But I'm someone who, if someone gives me a piece of paper or a document or something, and the first thing that I do is take a picture of it or scan it in to make it digital. So at that point, it may as well just be on the ledger and live digitally, as opposed to now having to juggle all of these pieces of paper and files and file cabinets and whatnot, and then I have backups and Dropbox and iCloud and all these other places. It's ridiculous.
By the way, when you Google real versus artificial, the first hit is 6 benefits of artificial versus real Christmas trees. So I think that's somehow where the conversation about artificial really. And then the second hit is the Guardian article: Are real or fake Christmas trees better for the planet? Let's find out.
Did you include Christmas trees in this
Sadly
project?
not. No, there is no Christmas trees. Clearly, there should have been at least one like Christmas special for when you drop the eggnog on top of your nice carpet, and then everybody gets sad. Yeah.
Well, in my household, at least one, if not multiple Christmas ornaments break every single year, because I have 3 cats that like to climb in the tree and knock all of the ornaments on the ground. So, especially with a child, I think you should be definitely getting a few topples around Christmas time with the Christmas tree.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the accidents will increase like exponentially as soon as the crawling and the walking starts soonish. I'm sure many things will break. Many glasses of milk will be spilled all over everything for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the fun part about most accidents happen at home. I think I calculated even like if you do one accident per month, which I'm already above, but one accident per month, then there's 12 accidents per year, and 256 divided by 12, that's 21 years. So it's going to take a long time. It's interesting to see where Ethereum is at in like 20 years, if it's at all,
Oh my gosh. So this is, I mean, this is a very, very long-term commitment for you and your family. This a very long-term on-chain performance piece.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Like one can always invest one's artist time into any project. It seems like a straight. It seems like a often a choice I end up doing. Like I end up giving myself tons of future work for unknown reasons. I'm not sure. I think maybe it gets better. Like I think it would be fantastic if the last piece topples on like 20, what is it? 2044 would be beautiful. It would be nice.
That would be beautiful. And one of the things when I was reviewing the project before we got on today, one of the things I think is so interesting and unique is this really long term commitment you're making, but also the long term commitment to recording your mistakes. And the collaboration with your family to record their mistakes as well, and the honesty and transparency that goes along with that. You're locking permanence into the blockchain for such imperfect acts, for mistakes, for accidents, recording your mistakes and really owning up to them. And I think that's incredible. That's something that a lot of people don't do. And, they want to brush their accidents under the rug. They don't want to live with them day to day. They certainly don't want them permanently recorded on the blockchain. So it's really unique and so interesting about the conception of the project and your 20 plus year commitment to executing the project over the course of time.
I think it's nice. I think as you were talking now, I thought like it's nice because the concept of accident is quite vague because it could just be something very banal. So you drop a glass on the floor and it breaks, and then that's an accident. But it can also be like you accidentally injure your kid by dropping something on them, or when you're cutting their nails because they are so tiny, the fingers, you just nick them a little bit. That's also an accident. It's like something unintended you don't want to happen. And it's nicer, I think, for the project if these accidents take a bit more of an expanded idea. So anytime you go, oh shit, that's considered an accident. You hit send too early on the email, for example, or you send the email to the wrong person, or you forget the attachment. Maybe that counts.
And how are you going to decide for some of these difficult cases? Earlier you said you think the accident will just speak to you, so that's how you're going to live with it.
Yeah, pure instinct. I think one of the most beautiful things one can do as an artist is to just own the decision by claiming that the only reason for it to be like that is because I decided it to be like that. And then that's justification enough. And I think it's really hard to do, but when you do it, it feels good.
100%. I definitely agree. Def Beef, do you have anything to add or ask on that point?
Well, I'm just I was just thinking that I'm really looking forward to seeing, it adds a level of curiosity as well for the audience because if there's not any strict criteria about what constitutes an accident, then it will sort of be more exciting to see which ones get documented. So I'm looking forward to that. Not looking forward to the misfortune of the unintended, things that may happen, especially if it involves injury. But yeah, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's like hoping for accidents, but it's all good. And for sure, we hope for non-serious accidents. For most accidents happen at home, 100%. I didn't even consider like bad accidents in doing this, but of course that should have probably been considered. Let's switch the subject. Yeah.
I feel like such a voyeur now. I'm just going to be checking your Twitter for the latest updates of what's been toppled and why.
Yeah. Ooh la la. We'll find out. We'll find out.
Well, to wrap things up here, I'm conscious we only have 5 minutes left. I have 5 rapid fire wrap up questions that hopefully will be fun for both of you to answer. But and they're completely unrelated to the subject. So before we move on, to kind of close this out, I just wanted to ask if you have any other questions you want to ask or anything else you wanted to talk about today. You there?
Oh, sorry. I had my thing on mute. I think that we've covered most of the things that I had notes about, but I just wanted to say that it's been a real pleasure speaking with Jonas, and I really enjoyed working on this exhibition. It was really beneficial for me to think and write about all these works and learn from Operator and Casey, and yeah, I'm really proud of and honored to be included.
Likewise, in terms of speaking with everybody here, I just have to add before the rapid fire questions. It's a pleasure. And now we have a shared. Now I know we have a shared interest in hammers on anvils. So now we can share hammer on anvil memes, which is really nice.
I have a collection of anvils, so we can speak later.
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds like a nice NFT project.
I want to see pictures of anvils. Don't leave me out.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully this will be fun. All right, so first question. Warren Buffett Warren Buffett likened AI to unleashing the atom bomb. When you hear this, do you think destructive nuclear explosion or do you think clean nuclear energy?
I think that's a ridiculous thing. The probability that we are destroyed by like nuclear bomb is so much higher than any of the dangers of AI. I think it's like like people worried about AI destroying us or something like that is like way down the list. And I would say that like nuclear war is much more likely.
I think anybody who speaks about the dangers of artificial general intelligence is just building a smokescreen for hiding the current problems with the current versions of AI. Because I agree, it's far into the future, hopefully. However, when the artificial general intelligence comes about, I think it's a 50-50 chance we either live forever or we'll all die, basically.
I did see today that there's new funding and scientific research going into figuring out how to make humans live longer. So this is a hot topic, it seems.
They're doing really well on that, by the way. Like, I think maybe that's even more conspiracy theories, but I think some scientists worked out how to reset our genes, right?
Oh, wow.
So because it's not that we age, like it's not that the genes get worse, it's that the genes forget what they're supposed to do. So I think based on the current research, they could give you 20 more years or something like that. Anyways, it might also just be deeply experimental and completely non-peer reviewed, but so grain of salt. Okay, next question.
As the three of us go and sign up for this. Very interesting. All right, question 2. What keeps you returning to your practice every day?
I mean, it's just kind of what I've always done, right? Like it's just sort of existing. So I was doing all these things before anybody knew about it. I didn't even have a career or any intention of having a career as a professional artist. So I think it's just the curiosity, things that are interesting to do, and that's what I sort of spent my time on.
So curiosity and momentum.
At the moment, for me, sorry, currently it's all the deadlines, but normally I think it's also similar. It's like, the funny part is I never even asked myself this question. It's like it's just automatic. It's there. It's like what I do, and then. But at the moment, because of newborn, it's mostly the deadlines. Because if there wasn't deadlines, I think I would just take a massive break. So.
Take a massive nap, it sounds like. Okay. Number 3, fill in the blank. Slow down and smell the blank.
Coffee.
That's mine.
I mean, I could try to be obtuse and pick something really unique or whatever, but I mean, coffee, roses, that's the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, the coffee. All right. What is one thing you think should change in the world, Web3 or not Web3 related?
I think that they should abolish daylight savings time.
That's underway, by the way. Like, it's coming, at least to Europe. EU, I think they're nuking it next year. So it's going away, which I agree, it sucks. But otherwise, like, no, like, this is the question where you can fix the world, but then what would you remove? I would say like a combination of greed and selfishness, maybe. If you remove that, maybe the world gets better.
Okay. And finally, what are you most looking forward to in the next 12 months? I'm looking forward to at least one topple.
I imagine Jonas is probably looking forward to sleeping through the night. If I remember my experience, anyways. What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to taking some months to not make any art at all and just read, actually. So I'm going to go on quote unquote sabbatical at some point in the next 12 months and just read and observe.
I love this. What's on your reading list?
It still to be determined. I mean, like, there's a bunch of things, but yeah, like, it's just like no deadlines, no to everything, and it's the only way I think that I can, like, if I ask myself honestly how to improve as an artist, I need to investigate and play some catch up, but also just broaden some understanding of some things.
Nice. That sounds super nice. Indeed, my sleep is not that bad at the moment, so I don't know what I'm looking forward to. Like, I look forward to tomorrow's coffee. Let's say like that. Yeah, that's nice. No, I'm looking forward. Actually, if I'm honest, I'm looking forward to the first time my kid will laugh proper, because he's already smiling a lot. But I think the laugh will be like next level fun. So I think that's. But I'm also very happy to wait for it because every moment is really nice. That's
so sweet. What a wonderful note to end on. Okay, Elizabeth, I kind of pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all so much. This conversation has been really fun. And I honestly don't know if I've laughed this hard in a space before. I've been muted, so you can't hear me, but the laugh track was going back here for sure. And I really just appreciate how open everyone's been and for everyone joining us today here in the audience as well. So really deepest gratitude to Jonas, Def Beef, and Whitney. This has been wonderful. Please do go visit the exhibition and explore Jonas's work and the reflections by source curators, operator, Def Beef, and Casey Reas. So tomorrow, just to give a flavor of what's up. So tomorrow, Vinny Valenzuela and I will sit down with Maya Mann and Zebran Verstig in a talk called The Internet Made Me. On Friday, we're joined by Sasha Stiles, Judy Mom, and Dada in a talk called Creating the Creative, moderated by Deja T, the other half of Operator. And on Monday, to close the Source Talk series, we're discussing Fabrics of Time and Space with Anna Lucia, Finga Code, Sarah Zucker, and Travis Smalley, moderated by Madeline Pierpont. And then also just one last thing. So the other day we announced our 39th exhibition on Feral File, and it opens on October 12th. It's an exhibition called Truth, and it's curated by Adam Berninger and features Presstubin Bezor, Charlotte Dan, Tyler Boswell, Hal0999, Lisa Orth, Ella Hoepner, and David Seven. So please do keep an eye out for more information about that exhibition. We have some really exciting stuff coming out with the artists. But to circle it back to this conversation today, thank you all again so much. I have really, this has made me think a lot about accidents, what we consider accidents versus, you know, the things that we do intentionally, or just like the random things that happen throughout the day, that can be transformative, and also a moment to reflect. So thank you so much, to Whitney, Deaf Beef, and Jonas. I've really enjoyed this conversation and appreciate you all taking the time during these busy, busy times. So if that's all, then I wish you all a really wonderful day. My name is Elizabeth Sweet, and I'll see you tomorrow for the rest of the Source Talk series. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Bye. Take care.